Ritsuka Tachibana is a hardworking and cheerful high school student living with her mother, cooking breakfast and doing chores for her busy and exhausted mother who is a manuscript translator. She also has an elder brother working in London living far from them. When leaving for school, her mother replaces the charm present in her pendant. While Ritsuka thinks it's adorable, her mother emphasizes on how it is very important and hugs her goodbye. She is living a joyful and ordinary life with not much to care about until one day she reaches her school. She realizes something is not right. Other students are looking at her with suspicion and envy when she discovers that she has been urgently summoned by the student council president Rem Kajanuki and is shocked by it. She enters the third library nervously, trying to recall what could have caused this. The student council has 4 charismatic members with Kajanuki Rem as their president. As soon as she enters, she is informed by Rem of being accused of violating school regulations on the basis of a mysterious note received by him. Tachibana straightaway denies any such involvement and gets angry. All of a sudden, Rem stares into Tachibana's eyes and starts to use some kind of ominous power like hypnosis. While she is unable to move, he tells her that he actually called her to ask something but is interrupted when the charm given by her mother starts to glow and releases her from his hold. As soon as Tachibana regains consciousness, she dashes away from the hall, telling them she hasn't broken any regulations. When she comes out, she finds her friend Azuna is waiting for her anxiously and tells her how the student council president was not like what they had anticipated and was rude. Just when she thinks she's out of the trouble, things get even worse. On getting back home, she realizes that her house has been broken into and everything is in chaos. When she peeks in through a window, she sees her mother lying on the floor injured and bleeding, while 3 shady-looking men are finding for something all over the house. When she tries to enter, she is stopped by her mother and immediately tries contacting the police but is unable to call them. After which she runs to a police station and returns with some police officers. To her surprise, the house is back to normal and doesn't have any signs of being broken into, which Tachibana saw earlier. When the police officers see that the house seems untouched, they disregard Tachibana's words and leave her, saying that she should contact them again only if her mother doesn't come back. Tachibana, being shocked and confused, calls upon her elder brother and explains what has happened. He believes her and tells her he'll leave for home right away, while instructing her to stay at her friend Azuna's house and to not lose her pendant under any circumstance. When she leaves for Azuna's house, Tachibana encounters the same dangerous people that broke into her house and kidnapped her mother. They are very strong and quick. They get hold of Tachibana and try to make her talk about a forbidden grimoire and where it is. Just as they try to force it out of her, Rem, the student council president, arrives at the scene and commands them to leave her. A fight breaks out between them in which Rem completely defeats them and forces their leader to retreat. After this, Rem takes Tachibana with him and assists her with finding her mom by using influence of Kajanuki family and discussing whether some students might be devil worshippers. On the next day, Tachibana arrives at the school with Rem and can't help but have all eyes on her. She gets shy and thanks him for letting her stay and leaves hurriedly as she gets nervous. Everyone around her is talking about it. Her friend Azuna is very worried about her as she did not show up last night and hugs her and learns of what happened last night. Tachibana is summoned by the student council again, where she learns from Rem about her mother's last whereabouts from the GPS location tracked from her phone, while other members of the student council are fooling around with her. Tachibana recognizes the location as her grandfather's house and they leave immediately to search for the place. On reaching there, they find that someone has forcefully entered into her grandfather's house too. On entering, they find the place in the same condition as Tachibana's house was. She wonders about how awful it is and about her injured mother not being able to find her anywhere. After searching the whole place, they find her cell phone. Rem comforts her and assures her that they will find her mother. When they try to leave the house, they realize they've been trapped and the house has been set on fire. While trying to get the fire extinguisher, Tachibana gets caught by one of the conspirators, but soon after Rem arrives and frees her. He tells her to escape while he engages them in combat. Once again, Rem demolishes the villains and learns that they haven't found the forbidden grimoire yet. They both escape safely, but the house gets completely burned down. Tachibana gets worried about Rem and hugs him as soon as he appears out of the house. On arriving back, they meet with Tachibana's brother, who assures her everything will be fine now. On meeting with her elder brother Lindo, she introduces him to Rem, but it seems that he is not very pleasant about meeting Rem and instead tells her to leave immediately. While clutching her hand angrily, they leave for home. On the next day, Lindo tells Ritsuka to take some time off and to not leave the house for a while. He also tells her to never meet with Rem again. She is not given any answer when she asks why it is so. Lindo sprinkles holy water throughout the house and warns Ritsuka to not leave the place as he has to go out for some reason. Meanwhile, Azuna tells Ritsuka she will come to stay with her. While being all by herself, Ritsuka hears a loud cry and the sound of an accident. When she went out, there was no such thing. Instead, she's greeted with a rose by Yuri Sogami from the Students' Council. He tells her that Rem has received some information regarding her mother and is calling her to discuss it. She follows Yuri without a second thought and accompanies him into a huge place filled with people wearing a sinister smile and a mask. He gets close to Ritsuka and lays her on a couch. He starts behaving in a very seductive manner, making her uncomfortable, but gradually she falls for his power. Similar to Rem's hypnosis, she gets still looking into his eyes. But soon enough, the pendant she's wearing breaks her free from his powers, and she slaps Yuri as soon as she regains consciousness. This enrages the weird and sinister crowd of people standing below, and they start laughing hysterically while chasing Tachibana, causing her to get scared. After being chased for a while, Yuri rescues her and tries to get a hold of her again. He tells her that her brother Lindo has been hiding things from her and that he's an exorcist. Rem watches this and frees her from Yuri. He tells Yuri that it's enough while Ritsuka runs away from them on becoming conscious and meets up with her brother. As soon as she escapes, they head back home. Ritsuka is still recovering from the early confrontation and is woken up from a nightmare by Lindo. She faints as soon as she gets up from the bed. All these events had taken a toll over her health. She recalls being protected by Lindo and how she used to idolize him as a prince. However, things change with time. She tells Lindo about what Yuri told her and asks if he's an exorcist. Lindo tells her the truth and as to why he opted for becoming an exorcist. He also tells her the truth behind her grandfather's death and how he was cursed by some sinister entities like devils and vampires, and how the Forbidden Grimoire is connected to all this. How the members of the Student Council are all devils and are also behind the grimoire. Unable to believe his words completely, Ritsuka breaks out from her room to see for herself if Rem was really after the grimoire. She goes out looking for him but is sent away later on. However, she is confronted by an imposter with the appearance of Rem. Worried about his sister, Lindo rushes to find her and get her out of the trouble where he has to battle multiple clones of Rem who attack him and injure him, but he's persistent to protect his sister and he finally has to resort to using his powers and instantly defeats the clones. To ensure her safety, Lindo gives Ritsuka a ring of the sacred lux for her protection. He also tells her that if she wants to go to school so badly he won't object, but from now on he will accompany her to school, leaving Ritsuka shocked. Ritsuka is shocked by how quickly her brother has gotten popular and is going to the same school as her. While attending her class, Mage, one of the student council members, suddenly bashes the door and enters into the class. He forcefully picks up Ritsuka and jumps right out the window. Once he gets away, everything turns back to normal and everyone forgets what happened. He tries to get her to tell where the grimoire is using his devil powers, but is stopped by the ring Ritsuka received from Lindo. Realizing he cannot use his powers over her, Mage tells her that he'll win her over and make her his own. He tries to showcase his powers and takes Tachibana to various places, promising to fulfill her every fantasy and exposing his punk rebellious attitude and how cool he is, but still can't win her over. Rem attempts to rescue her and tells her that she is no more than a pawn for his plan, which leaves her in deep distress. He tastes one of her tears and is overwhelmed on being exposed to her true feeling, after which he leaves her back but is caught by Lindo. They both engage in a ferocious battle. Finally, Ritsuka steps in between to stop the battle. After being ridiculed by the other student council members, Shiki gets frustrated and leaves them. He starts to pluck roses with his bare hands. When Ritsuka watches him, she tries to stop him from hurting himself. On seeing Ritsuka, he tries to grab the opportunity and lures her by telling her that he might know where her mother really is. Remembering her previous encounters with the other members of the council, she is hesitant to go with him, but he offers her to take Azuna with herself too, which makes her believe him. He takes her to an art gallery where she suddenly realizes that all the portraits are events which had happened in her past and she's lost in her memory. When she tries to escape, Shiki denies her and threatens to trap her forever or kill her. Azuna appears and uses her power on Shiki. Tachibana realizes that Azuna is also an exorcist. Shiki was originally a fallen angel and therefore immune to Azuna's power. Shiki finally loses interest in them when he sees no despair in their eyes and lets them escape. Tachibana and Azuna go for shopping together, where Azuna tells her to be cautious and not to wander off by herself as she might be in danger. As soon as Azuna leaves Tachibana for a moment to get the items billed, suddenly Rem's dog Lowen, which Ritsuka had already met once earlier, appears in the store. The dog lures Ritsuka outside of the store away from Azuna. Just when she starts to pet the dog, it suddenly transforms into a human form and licks her neck. She gets awkward and pushes him away. Lowen talks to Ritsuka about the Forbidden Grimoire and offers to tell her more about it if she leaves with him, and he assures her to not be forceful. When they leave, Lowen tells her that the very grimoire they are looking out for is nothing else but Tachibana herself. She is a manifestation of the grimoire and has the power to rule the world. Lowen then offers to extract her power for freeing his master Maxis, which is going against Rem. Upon hearing this, Rem stops her from surrendering her power and shuns Lowen for being disloyal towards him. Lindo comes to rescue his sister, and when he sees that she is bleeding, he loses his composure and attacks, ruthlessly harming Ritsuka unintentionally. He soon gets back to normal and is teleported back to their location. Tachibana has her school festival. Her brother and Azuna are being very cautious but don't want to spoil the fun. On entering the school festival, it looks immensely beautiful and they're all mesmerized by it. Rem informs the rest of the student council that Lowen betrayed them and serves his old master Maxis. Maxis is the fallen demon lord who was defeated and sealed away by Rem's father. He is trying to get back with the power of the grimoire. Rem tells the rest of the student council members that he has finally found where the grimoire is located. It was never with the Tachibana family. It is present in an old church in Vienna. Ritsuka and Azuna are working together in a pancake stall while Lindo keeps an eye on them. However, it creeps them out. When Azuna leaves to stop Lindo, Ritsuko gets invited by someone behind the stall. Yuri asks her to be her partner for the grand dance which will happen that night. Suddenly Mage appears and apologizes to her since the grimoire was in Vienna and asks her out for the dance too, followed by Shiki who asks her the same. When the awaited night arrives, Azuna tells Ritsuko about the king and queen tradition of the ball and how 2 of the glasses contain crowns. To her surprise, when Ritsuko finishes her drink, she finds one of the crowns at the bottom of her glass and is shocked. Next up, when Rem finishes his drink, he finds a crown too. They both get to be the king and queen and have to dance in the center. When the event finally concludes and Tachibana leaves for her home, they are attacked by vampires. The leader of the vampires captures Ritsuka. When Azuna tries to free her, the vampire leader puts a blade through her gut. Ritsuka falls into despair watching one of her dear friends die and bursts into a flash of light. Unable to comprehend her loss, Ritsuka faints away and Lindo carries her to the Exorcist Society where they offer them protection. When Ritsuka wakes up in the Exorcist Society, she can't help but wonder if Azuna's death was her fault. Lindo tries to comfort her and gives her another ring for protection. On coming back, he finds that she is absent from her bed and gets taken by the priests and exorcists without his knowledge. He soon comes to understand their motive, which is to eliminate the grimoire, which would also lead to Ritsuka's death. When he learns that they are not allies with the Exorcist Society, Lindo rescues Ritsuka. The priests of the Exorcist Society reveal to Ritsuka that Lindo is a damper. He is half human and half vampire. They both manage to flee away from the Exorcist Society and find shelter in a shrine. Here Lindo reveals to Ritsuka that they are not biological siblings and that Lindo was adopted by Ritsuka's mother as he was abandoned for being a damper. He also reveals his true feelings for Ritsuka, that he loves her but not as a brother. Just as he tries to woo her, Rem appears and a fight breaks out between the two. Rem defeats Lindo, but Ritsuka tells him that she hates him for hurting people she's close to and never wants to see him again. Ritsuka takes Lindo, who is mortally wounded, to the infirmary as he cannot expose his true identity. The other devil members of the student council lose faith in Rem after being betrayed by his lies that the grimoire was in Vienna. After fighting for a while, they realize that they all have some kind of attachment towards Ritsuka. They finally unite because their goals align and they have a common enemy, that is Maxis. Lindo is heavily injured and Ritsuka tries to take care of him but has to leave as she is summoned by the vampires to visit her mother and know the truth. The vampires tell her about how she is the daughter of the devil king Maxis and that her powers arose from his devil blood. Ritsuka also finally meets her mother and she tells her how tough it must be for her to bear these superhuman powers in her human body. The vampires offer Ritsuka a solution if she surrenders her powers to the ruler of destruction and confusion, vampire Lord Nesta. They want her powers to defeat the devils who have long oppressed them. Ritsuka agrees and accompanies the vampire to ferry into Lord Nesta's domain. Ritsuka enters Lord Nesta's domain and goes on with her decision. On entering his castle and confronting him, she realizes how powerful he is when he strangles one of his subordinates just for getting a scratch on Ritsuka. Lord Nesta reveals to her that just like she is the daughter of Maxis the Devil King, Lindo is his son that he had with her aunt in order to achieve the power of the forbidden grimoire. Ritsuka tells him that she despises him and cannot forgive them for what they did to Azuna. When Ritsuka asks him how he shall release the power of the grimoire from her body, Nesta tells her that he will extract the power from her body by taking the slightest bit of her blood at the time she turns 17 and the power of the grimoire is released. Ritsuka agrees and the vampires prepare for a banquet. Ritsuka is given a bath and dressed up by Nesta's maidens who are human. When the vampire arrives to take her, she becomes hesitant and asks just how much blood it is that Nesta referred to as the slightest bit and if she will go back to normal after all this ends. The vampire gets furious and reveals to her that she will die tonight and that Lord Nesta shall extract every drop of her blood. Lindo arrives at the third library to know Ritsuka's whereabouts, but the student council members have no clue either. Lowen arrives and tells them how she is being held by the vampire king. They all decide to free her from him and Lindo accompanies them. Just when the vampire king is about to take Ritsuka's blood, Lowen enters and attacks him with dogs, letting Ritsuka escape from his grasp. The rest of the members and Lloyd arrive soon after, but Ritsuka is taken captive by the vampire leader and the whole mob of vampires attacks them simultaneously. All the student council members and Lloyd fight ferociously to free Ritsuka, but she falls into the grasp of the vampire king again. Looking at his fellow vampires being slain by the devils, the vampire king loses his focus over Ritsuka, at which moment she grabs the opportunity and attacks him with a candle stand to free herself. She is soon caught and is made to submit by force. The vampire king attempts to suck her blood once again but is interrupted by Lowen, who attacks his shadow and manages to free Ritsuka. Ritsuka tries to reach Lindo, but he is forced to engage the vampire leader in combat. He entrusts her to Rem. Rem takes her away from them and hugs Ritsuka, exposing his true feelings for her, vowing to always protect her from danger. However, Lindo doesn't believe him and doesn't consider him as his father. When he climbs up to him, he rushes his fist towards the vampire king's heart and pierces his heart. Just as everyone believes they've achieved victory, the vampire king gets revived and they realize that he has hidden his heart, without which he cannot be defeated. The vampire king gazes at them with fury and throws them off with his power, injuring all of them, especially Rem. Looking at how things are going, Ritsuka finally decides to choose her own destiny and lets the power of the forbidden grimoire loose. Determined to save everyone with the power of the grimoire, she wishes to protect her friends and loved ones. She picks a dagger and pierces a manifestation of the vampire king's heart, which is actually hidden in a statue right by him, finally defeating the vampire king. Letting her power loose makes Ritsuka fall and drop into Rem's arms. The devils realize that the smell of the grimoire is fainting, implying that it is disappearing. Lowen goes into search for some other method to free his master Maxis. Rem and Ritsuka finally unite and their fate sealed when Rem confesses his love for Ritsuka. But Rem can no longer remain in the human world and has to depart back to his own world, while Ritsuka decides her own destiny, that she wants to continue living as a human and doesn't want to leave this world. Rem finally kisses Ritsuka as he disappears, looking forward to meeting his only true love once again. Things finally get back to normal for Ritsuka and she can finally enjoy her ordinary life again.